If your history class sometimes seems boring, it is because your teachers aren't telling you about the most interesting historical facts. Sometimes they are even just lying to you, but we can't blame them. This is what their teachers told them decades ago, but it is now time to find the truth about what happened in the past. Did you know that Napoleon wasn't actually short? Make sure to watch this video to learn where this myth comes from and for more funny stories. Christopher Columbus. We know Columbus as the man who discovered America and who wanted to prove that the earth is round. Our teachers told us that the Italian explorer wanted to find a quicker and safer way to reach Asia by traveling west. His goal was to prove that it was possible to travel around the globe, but instead he accidentally found America. The rest is history. Even though this story is true, that doesn't make him the first man to discover the continent. Native Americans were there thousands of years ago, late in the Ice Age. This only makes the navigator a man who stole their land, and Christopher Columbus was not the first European to discover America. Nearly 500 years before his birth, a group of Vikings found the New World. You might think that Columbus at least proved that the earth is round, but that is also a myth from over 2,000 years ago. Pythagoras was the first to mention this idea. Aristotle later proved physical evidence by looking at the stars. Moreover, Eratosthenes even managed to estimate the Earth's circumference using basic geometry, so Christopher Columbus might be the reason why so many of us now live in America. But this man certainly doesn't deserve all the credit for these discoveries. We can't believe that our history teacher has been lying to us all this time. Caligula made his horse a consul. There are some historical facts that teachers don't want us to know about, simply because they don't make sense at all, but you'll be surprised to see that this story is true. The Roman Emperor Caligula really made his horse a consul, and that's not the only crazy thing he did. This man was in love with his horse, Incitatus. He gave it a marble stall, an ivory manger, a jeweled collar, and a house servant even fed Incitatus oats mixed with gold flakes. Caligula was known for his madness. When he was not obsessed with his horse, he had conversations with the moon. But let's go back to the horse. A historian gave a logical reason to explain why Incitatus became a consul. Caligula treated his horse as a way to humiliate senators and other elites. They were shocked to see that a horse had more things than they could ever wish for. But what was even more insulting was to see that their job was so meaningless that even an animal could do it. And sometimes we think that a horse could share great ideas as a consul-free carrot for everyone. Lincoln didn't believe that everyone was equal. Abraham Lincoln was known as the man who declared that all slaves should be forever free. He believed that slavery was morally wrong and did his best to stop it, but the politician was not perfect. In fact, he didn't know exactly what should be done about slaves within the political system. Abolitionists wanted slavery to be immediately abolished and freed slaves to become equal members of society, but the politician wasn't sure it was a good thing. So even though Lincoln had a good idea, he didn't clearly know how to make things change. But that is not the worst mistake he made. Abraham Lincoln just didn't believe that white and black people were equal. He didn't want black people to be slaves, but he wasn't in favor of the social and political equality of the two races either. The politician didn't think that black men and women should have the right to vote, serve on juries, hold office, or intermarry with whites. He'd only believed that their condition should be improved and that they deserved to be paid for their work. His views later evolved over the course of his presidency, but we shouldn't forget about what he said. So, even if he had some new ideas at that time, we wouldn't think he was a good person in our modern world. Witches weren't burned at the stake. You have all heard about the Salem Witch Trials. In 1692, people started suffering from seizures and contortions, and a physician diagnosed the children as being victims of black magic. They needed someone to blame, so they decided that many women were responsible for this using witchcraft. 20 people were executed because they were believed to be witches. This story is true, but not the way their lives ended. These women weren't burned at the stake. In accordance with English law, they were hanged. There was also a man among them who was executed with heavy stones, but they are not the only victims of the Salem trial. Many women passed away behind bars while awaiting their trial. Why do most people think that witches were burned at the stake? It was inspired by European witch trials. At that time, execution by fire was a common practice. It is believed that between the 15th and 18th centuries, 50,000 people were executed as witches in Europe. This tragedy happened because of a feeling that still exists nowadays. We fear what we don't know, and we hate what we fear. This is why men called these women witches and wanted to eliminate them. And do you know what the best defense against this way of thinking is? It is education. This is why our history classes are so important. Jesus Jesus wasn't born in December. We have been celebrating Christmas on the wrong day during all these years, and that's not the worst mistake we made. Jesus wasn't born in year 1 either. This means that the term BC or before Christ doesn't make sense. The only things that we know about his birth were written in the New Testament. The Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke each told a different story anyway. There was nothing about any specific calendar dates, so historians had to find other ways to know when the Son of God was born. It is really implausible that Mary and Joseph traveled from Nazareth to Bethlehem in the middle of the winter. A light they saw in the sky might be explained by different rare astronomical events that happened in 5 BC, 2 BC, and 7 BC. Nothing could confirm which date was the right one, but most scholars agreed that Christ was probably not born on December 25th, year 1. But why have we been celebrating Christmas during the winter? During all these years, the church thought it was a good opportunity to add Christmas to all the other winter celebrations of other pagan religious groups. Christmas had little to do with Christ, after all. A secret chamber was built on Mount Rushmore. If you watched the movie The National Treasure Book of Secrets, you have probably heard about the chamber that was built on Mount Rushmore. Even though it is not as impressive as what you saw in the movie, the story was not far from reality. The chamber was originally intended to hold some of America's most treasured documents. Hidden behind the hairline of Abraham Lincoln was an 18-foot-tall doorway to this room, but unfortunately, this secret chamber was left unfinished, and there was no reason to keep it secret. There was no legendary city of gold or national treasure to be found either. If you ever go through that doorway, you will find nothing more than an empty room approximately 75 feet in length with a 35-foot-tall ceiling. But that is not the only fascinating thing you need to know about Mount Rushmore. Did you know that Thomas Jefferson was a Dover? Jefferson was supposed to be on Washington's right, but after 18 months of carving, the sculptor changed his mind and dynamited Jefferson off the mountain. He was then sculpted again on Washington's left. We'll never see Mount Rushmore the same way again now that you know about this, but we have to admit that we still hope there is a treasure hidden somewhere in the Black Hills. Marie Antoinette never said, "Let them eat cake." You might have heard this story during your history class. It was believed that during the French Revolution, the Queen was told that her starving peasant subjects had no bread to eat. According to the legend, Marie Antoinette answered, "Let them eat cake." Because of that, many people thought that she knew nothing about the condition of ordinary people and that it was an insult to them. But the truth is, she probably never said that there is absolutely no historical evidence that it happened. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was the first person to report that a great princess used this specific phrase, but he never said that this princess was Marie Antoinette. Actually, she was still a child at the time, but since Rousseau's writing inspired the revolution, this quote was falsely credited to Marie Antoinette. They used it as a way to Rousseau's opposition to the monarchy, and then the rumor was repeated so many times that people thought it was a fact. To prove that this is nothing but a myth, scholars have found similar tales in other parts of the world. It was not the first time a noble woman was accused of saying this kind of thing to the hungry poor. Did you believe in that story? We have to admit that we never thought our teachers could be lying to us. Van Gogh didn't cut his ear. Even if this legend sounded crazy, we all believed it. The painter had a mental illness, so he began having hallucinations. This is when he took a razor and cut his own ear. He later painted self-portrait with bandaged ear to immortalize this moment, but Van Gogh recalled nothing about the event, and the reason why he didn't remember it might be that this is not what happened. Actually, he lost his ear in a sword fight with his friend, a French artist named Paul Gauguin. He wrapped it in a cloth, walked into a building, and presented the ear to a woman who quickly fainted. Then Van Gogh went home to sleep and would have passed away if the police didn't find him. The next morning, the historians believe that the painter himself said that he was the one who cut off his own ear because he wanted to protect his friend. The two men both kept a pact of silence, and they made sure no one knew about this event until historians read the letters written by the two artists. This is how they found out that Gauguin was the responsible one for this. What would you do if your friend accidentally harmed you? Would you have the courage to pretend to be crazy to protect them? Don't be shy to tell us what you think in the comments. Simeon the Elder lived on a pillar. The reason why your teacher didn't tell you about this story is probably that it is meaningless. But we are going to tell you about it anyway because it is so funny. Street Simeon's Delius, also known as Simeon the Elder, was the first known pillar hermit. After being expelled from a monastic community, he wanted to get away from the hordes of disciples and onlookers who came to visit him. This is why he decided to spend the rest of his life on the top of a pillar. His first column was 6 feet high, but he later lived on a column that was 50 feet high. He was always exposed to the sun, the wind, and the rain. He had to be standing or sitting day and night, But how did he survive during all these years? He was provided with a ladder to communicate with people, and they gave him food. His pillar even became a pilgrimage site. People visited him to receive spiritual advice, be relieved from sickness, and find enlightenment. In prayer, Simeon converted many people and even influenced a Roman emperor. He passed away after spending 47 years in prayer and contemplation on his pillar. From what we know, Simeon the Elder was probably the most patient man who ever lived on earth. Napoleon wasn't short. We all believe that Napoleon was short after all. This is what our teachers told us, and we trusted them. The Napoleon complex was named after him to describe men who have an inferiority complex. People believe that smaller men acted quickly and aggressively to scare off bigger competition, but was it the reason why this leader was a master tactician? The myth was that Napoleon Bonaparte was 5'2" the day he passed away, and this fact is true. But that doesn't mean he was short. The politician leader was measured in French units at that time. In modern international units, he would actually be 5'7". You might think that is still short, but at that time in France, the average height for a man was about 5'5", so he was taller than them. The reason why people might have nicknamed him the Little Corporal was because he was standing next to really tall personal bodyguards. Or maybe there was a reason why people decided to make fun of him. It was said that Napoleon had a habit of spoiling women's clothing. When he didn't like the way they look, he just spilled ink or food on them to make it unwearable. Now that we know about this, we don't mind that people still think Napoleon is short. He probably deserved that unfortunate reputation. And that's it for 10 historical facts they don't teach you in school. Which one surprised you the most? Don't forget to tell us in the comments down below, and make sure you like this video if you believe in one of these myths. For more stories like this, check out our videos on the fascinating Atlantis myth, or the literary genius who brought us Frankenstein, Mary Shelley. Thanks for watching.